Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Curt and Paul Discuss. I'm Curt,
I'm Paul.
and on this episode we're going to be discussing Operation Finale. I'm going to let you explain to them what that story is about.
Operation Finale is about the Israel's their capture of Adolf Eichmann, who was the architect of the final solution for the Jews during World War II, which was the extermination. He pretty much carried out the orders to exterminate the Jews.
He designed like the concentration camps.
I don't know if he designed them, but
he designed the methods of extermination, I believe.
I don't know if he designed them, but he facilitated, because at that time Germany had already taken over a bunch of countries, and he facilitated the transportation of all these Jews to concentration camps.
Right, yeah.
And he was pretty much, you read a lot of accounts of him. In fact, a biography about him was where you ever heard of the phrase, the banality of evil?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this female author, I forget her name, but she used that phrase to describe him, because he was kind of like a desk clerk. He was an evil man, but he was kind of
it was pretty obvious at the one point in the movie how evil he is.
Yeah.
When he was describing something in great detail about what he witnessed.
Right.
And
well, they have him on record saying that he was overjoyed at the fact that he was responsible for killing, he said, 5 million people, because they were enemies of Germany, and he could go to the grave or something with a clear conscience. So
I don't think
Ben Kingsley's playing him in the movie.
Man, what an actor!
And it's kind of funny. I won't say funny, but it's weird because Ben Kingsley is famous for playing a Jew in Schindler's List.
Yeah.
And in this movie,
he's playing the ultimate evil Nazi.
Yeah, he's playing a Nazi. In fact, during the movie, he said that as his character Eichmann, he tells them what it is. The Mossad, he's living in Argentina,
right?
And they go in, and Argentina, I think a lot of Nazis went to Argentina because they had a fascist government.
Yeah, they were already pals, during the war.
So, the Israel wanted to extradite him, but Argentina
wouldn't even acknowledge that he was there.
Right. I mean, a lot of people, like Mangala, I think, went to Argentina.
Yeah,
they never even got him. He died he died on a beach.
The conspiracy theorists say that that's where Hitler died.
Yeah. I don't think so.
You don't buy into those conspiracy theories?
No, I don't.
You think he was taken out in the bunker?
Yes, I do.
Took himself out?
Well, actually, they never found his body, and the official story was that they took him out into the courtyard above the bunker, and they said that the Russian artillery just obliterated his body.
Well,
and later it was revealed by the Russians that they actually took his body and burned it.
Yeah, the Nazis burned it with 6 liters of petrol.
Yeah.
And then the Russians came in and took it.
They
didn't. They took the body. They took the remains, and they didn't tell anybody they had it until like the 80s or something.
Yeah.
It's maybe the 70s or 80s, somewhere in that region.
I think it was longer than that. I think it was back just a few years ago they revealed.
It was in 2000 or 2000?
Yeah, they revealed because they didn't want they they burned the rest of his remains and they buried him, but they didn't want anybody like holding vigils over,
right,
over where he was, buried.
Yeah, this guy, after he was hung in Israel, they took his ashes out to sea,
Yeah, right.
so that that he would never have a final resting place.
They did the same thing.
That's when somebody really mad at you, man.
Yeah,
They're
well,
like,
they did the same thing to
even
Bin Laden.
in death, I'm not going to give you any kind of closure.
Yeah, well, they did the same thing to Bin Laden. Remember?
Right? Yeah, they dumped him in the sea.
At least that's what they say.
Well, I'm pretty sure he's dead too.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's just funny that you can. I guess if you say enough of something, and you keep saying it, you can convince anybody of anything, just about.
The only stock I put in those conspiracy theories is it makes sense. It would have made more sense to capture Bin Laden and interrogate him, because God knows what he knew about other terrorist cells, okay? And telling the world that he's dead would be good cover to, do whatever they
He's in the basement at Guantanamo.
and being tortured. So that would have been perfect cover to torture him without any international outcry, because they never show pictures of his body or anything.
It wasn't like Saddam, man. They were putting him all over the news when they got him.
Right. Well, he didn't.
He didn't have nothing to offer them.
Yeah, he didn't have anything to offer.
He was just a sad old man at that point,
right,
living in a hole in the ground.
But
how'd we get on?
Well, we just start talking about
well, I mean,
Nazis and
this movie. I'm a huge World War II buff. I love to learn the history of World War II and the politics of it and the actual history side of it. I love it, man. I kind of casually study that era, and the things that the Germans did, man. The whole core of their belief system was based off of hate, just hate and blaming somebody else for all their problems. And they're like, well, hey, here's these people that, for whatever reason, they felt the Jews were responsible for the fact that their country started a war and then lost it and then had to pay back a lot of money.
It's a weird type of racism, though, because usually, like here in America, we blame, well, I shouldn't say we, white people, if I may be so bold, they blame the lesser people for their problems. They blame immigrants and black people. The lower class, people who were usually in the lower classes.
Well, it's more of a class thing than a color thing, because I don't think anybody that's out there working for a living.
Well, it's both, but with the Jews, it's more of it's a class thing too. But the Jews, I think.
It didn't matter what class you were in.
But they say most of the scholars, because if you think about some of the prominent Jews back then, you got Albert Einstein. I think I read somewhere, I don't know whether it's true, they said 90% of the German scholars were Jewish. So you got, in this situation, you got a racism against a group that's actually superior in a lot of academic and
financial too, because the Jews ran the banks.
They ran the banks because Jewish people consider other religions Gentiles, and although they did not believe in loaning money to their own race and charging interest. You could do that to Gentile people. Right. Which is what they did.
And so then these German people who don't have any money are seeing these Jewish people take their money and make money off of them. And it's real easy to start sowing those seeds of dissent within the community.
That's how they got that whole thing about being parasites.
Right, and and they owned all the shops because they were astute business people. The Jewish people were. They come from a line of money. You know, I mean, the Jews have been around for a long, long time.
Right.
And even in Germany, those families were old families. You know, and so there was old money that the Jews had in Germany. And when everybody went broke, that's when Hitler jumped up on the table and started, you know, spitting his hatred and trying to find somebody to blame. He also, in Mein Kampf, his book that he wrote, he blames the Jews for losing World War One because he said they weren't true soldiers, true warriors.
Well, part of that too was the Social Democrats took over the government at the end of World War One.
Right.
And a lot of them, they were left leaning. A lot of them were Jews.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
And Germany was about to lose the war. So the Social Democrats took power and they negotiated a truce.
Yeah.
Or armistice. So that, even though the army was asking the government to do this, later on they spread this lie that it was actually the government who forced the military to accept this armistice. And that was not true. It was the army that wanted it.
Right. I mean,
but after the fact, they blamed the Social Democrats, and because the Social Democrats was headed by a lot of Jewish people, they established this stabbed in the back myth
and
that Hitler used to later blame the Jews and bring the Treaty of Versailles and all that,
and to bring the population to his side because
right.
That's what he needed, the votes. Mm-hmm. You know, initially before he got the chancelleryship, you know, before he became the leader of Germany. But this ties back into what this movie's about: is that, you know, this guy's hiding. Eichmann is hiding. They believe it's him, and he's hiding in Argentina. He's under an assumed name. Do you remember what it was? It was Carlos.
What was it?
Carlos something. But his son's name was some like ultra Aryan.
Well, his
Nazi
son.
name.
A lot of this story a lot of it is based on a true story.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, his son, and in the movie, his son is the one that gets him exposed. His son is going. I forget what name Eichmann is calling himself, but his son is going around calling himself Nick Eichmann.
Right.
Instead
Nicholas
of
Eichmann.
instead of the assumed name, I forgot what it was, but he.
Because they were getting favor in Argentina by this rising power of Nazis.
Well, from what I've read about all the Nazis that went to Argentina and Chile and whatnot, they were actually experts at torture and suppression and infiltration and all that kind of stuff. So they offered their skills to the fascist governments,
right?
Like, I guess Perón and Pinochet. So
those techniques were coming in handy for them.
Yeah. So they were able to kind of offer their services to those governments when they came over, and that's how there's still Germans over there right now. I saw this guy on Joe Rogan's show. He was talking about these German communities in Argentina. Yeah, and they're still there. They have their own little communities.
Well, yeah, because
they speak German.
Yeah, they've been there for hundreds of years. Like the Germans settled there, had settlements that grew in size and became prominent members of those societies.
Yeah, right. So they're still there, and a lot of those people are descended from Nazis, direct descendants from Nazis. But the reason Eichmann gets exposed, and this is based on what actually happened. His son was running around using his real name, which was
and dating Jewish girls.
And yeah, he starts dating this Jewish girl, and I was looking at this actress. Her name is what is her name? Haley Lou Richardson. There she is, right?
Yeah, pretty girl.
I was like, where have I seen her? And I was racking my brain. I finally remembered where I looked her up. She was in Split. Did you see Split?
Oh yeah,
She was one of those girls that got kidnapped in Split.
Okay.
But it was killing me. But
Split was a good movie.
Yeah, so she was dating his son, and she had suspicions. Well, her father had suspicions because he's calling himself Eichmann. He's like wondering, is this son of D. Eichmann? And he tells one of his friends is a Jewish man in Austria, and he goes to Israel and tells the head of the Mossad about this lead he has, and that just starts the whole plot to kidnap him because they want somebody. In the opening of the movie, they think they found him, and it's actually another Nazi that they mistake him for, and they killed the guy.
This was like immediately after the war.
You're right. They killed the wrong guy. He's still a Nazi, but they, I guess by this point in the movie, it's like 1960. They don't see the use in just killing Nazis. They need somebody to stay in trial to bring it to the world's attention.
Bring closure to the Jewish community.
Right. So they kidnap him, but it kind of reminded me of have you seen Munich?
Mm-hmm. I did watch that.
A lot of elements of this film reminded me of that.
Yeah, they were really clever. The Mossad agents, they were really clever and really good at what they do, according to this.
And you got another. It's funny. Her name is Milena Lawrence. She was in Inglourious Bastards. Remember?
Yeah.
She was playing a Jew in that movie too. I almost, if she hadn't died in Inglourious,
she's the one that was the double agent, though, right?
She really wasn't a double agent. You mean in Inglourious Bastards?
Yeah.
No, she was the other one. She was the one.
Oh, she was the one that ran the theater.
Right.
Yeah. She was awesome. She took out a whole room for.
Right.
She was French in that one.
Yeah. Well, she's French in this one too.
Oh, is she French? Was she supposed to be French?
Well, every Jew in this Mossad team, they're from a different country.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and she was a doctor, and it was her responsibility.
She's a French Jew, and I think I don't remember where Oscar Isaac's character was from, but all of them.
That one guy just wanted to kill everybody. He was like, I don't understand why we can't just kill this fool.
But I actually saw another movie based on Eichmann called The Eichmann Show. And it was about just the trial. And it's a pretty good companion piece to this movie. Because you see what happens right at it starts. The premise for this movie is how they actually, because Israel hired a blacklisted Jewish filmmaker, a communist guy. Because back in the McCarthy era, they were blacklisting a lot of leftist filmmakers.
Right.
Well, they hired one of those guys to film the Eichmann's trial. And that's what that movie's about. Because they have to hide the judges in the trial didn't want cameras. So they had to build a false wall in the courtroom. Right. And put cameras behind them so it wouldn't disrupt the
court.
Yeah. During so you might want to check that out.
I will check it out because I like.
It's starring, it's starring Martin Freeman.
Okay.
So, and it was actually a television movie, but it was pretty good.
I'll check it out.
I think I saw it on Netflix or something.
Well, what was your favorite part of this movie?
I like the interrogation scenes between Oscar Isaac and Ben Kingsley.
Yeah, those
Right
were
here.
good exchanges, and
Because it humanized him a little bit. They didn't turn him into a caricature. He was just a normal. Because, like I said earlier, he's just a regular guy, and you're just thinking he's not a monster by any means. He's a father. He loves his kids.
loves his wife.
Because when he's captured, the first thing he wants to know is whether his family is okay. And this guy is responsible for killing millions of people, and yet has enough compassion to feel something for his family.
Right.
And I just thought that was very, very odd.
Yeah, and they could have. The writers of the show could have easily portrayed him as
just this
horrible-
Hannibal Lecter type.
Yeah, like just evil laugh
And all that, yeah.
Yeah, like playing mind games with his interrogators type stuff. Diabolical. But
When they threw in this little plot device where they capture him, but their plane is delayed, and then for some reason, the head of the airline that's going to transport them back to Israel won't transport them unless they get a signed statement from Eichmann saying.
And I wonder if that's true or
I don't
plot
think that
piece.
was true. I think that was done for the plot.
Yeah, plot.
Because I read a little bit about it and I didn't see anything.
Because it was probably a very fast extraction from.
Yeah.
But
they had to ramp up the tension a little bit.
Oh yeah, and it gave them the chance to tell Eichmann's story too,
Right.
And get the story from both sides of the fence,
Mm-hmm.
And so that interaction, and the first Mossad agent goes in there and he's trying to just be this
hard
ass interrogator, but they're not using torture,
right?
But they want him to voluntarily give up his signature.
They could have just forged his signature, but like I said, that wouldn't have been helped the narrative.
Well, they had said nobody had ever seen his signature.
Right. So.
Well, but why wouldn't he have signed a freaking crap ton of documents in Germany?
Yeah, like I said, it was a plot device that they made up to make it more interesting. Because I really doubt this happened, but he needed to sign this letter saying he agreed to go to Israel to
stand trial.
Because they didn't have the legal basis to really do this.
It could have been kidnapping,
Right, and the airline needed something to fall back on in case the Argentine government
is right on their heels. They're just barely escaping.
And it kind of reminded me of Argo.
Yeah. Yeah.
It reminded me of Munich a little bit, just because the Mossad, the composition of Mossad and whatnot, and again in this movie they got a non-Jewish guy playing the.
Did it remind you of 22 Mile?
Why 22 Mile?
Because that just movie was so terrible.
No, but you remember in Munich they had an Australian, Eric Bana, playing the lead of the Mossad.
The Mossad, yeah.
Then they had Daniel Craig, blonde-haired Daniel Craig, playing the second in command Jewish guy. And it's like, in this movie they got a blonde French Jew, and he's Guatemalan and Cuban, and he's playing it's like, dude, could y'all not find a Jewish? I mean, he looks like he could be Jewish.
And what's funny about him is that the character that he's playing is like a screw up. Like he's screwed up every operation. He always screws the pooch and messes things up. And so they throw that little story piece in too of how the screw up got one of the greatest arrests or whatever you want to call it, brings one of the biggest war criminals to justice. But I liked it. I liked it. I really enjoyed the acting. The acting was superb.
You know what I liked about it? I liked the directing and the editing, because they would throw you into a scene and it was it felt kind of organic the way they entered scenes, because you they in a lot of movies they'll throw you into a new location and they'll have a little intertitle telling you exactly where you are, and sometimes they wouldn't do that in this movie, and they will cross cut to memories that the main character that Oscar Isaac is playing, he's thinking about his sister that got murdered during the Holocaust, and you just seeing flashbacks.
Yeah, I did enjoy.
And they're not setting up. They're not giving you time to process stuff. They're not easing you into a lot of these transitions, so it keeps your attention. At least that's what it did to me. Right. I had to really pay attention to keep track of what was going on, and I don't know whether they did that intentionally or that maybe they were just bad editors, but
I think that was intentional.
I think it was intentional. It felt organic, though. It felt like you were actually watching something real.
And you didn't need tags to tell you what you're watching.
Right.
Because you knew you were in the woods where the sister was being murdered, or you knew you were in the woods where the Nazis were killing 5,000 Jews in a ditch.
I got more of an emotional reaction out of that scene. I mean, that scene where they shoot the Jews in the ditch was hard, but that one scene where they hang his sister and they're sitting there and they're taking pictures, and she was a very beautiful woman too.
Yeah.
Nicely dressed woman, and they're hanging this beautiful woman in the middle of a forest, and they're taking pictures next to her body. And hanging from a tree, and it kind of reminded me of those old lynching photos you see from the South of black men, and you see the white people like smiling and taking pictures next to the body. It kind of reminded me of that, but I was just like, how they're killing somebody, a white woman.
Well, they killed babies too.
Yeah, they killed babies.
They didn't like to let the babies go.
Just to show you how insane they are, they're not even killing somebody of another race. They're killing somebody
that looks like them.
A woman, for no reason at all, really. And they're taking joy in it. And that scene just it enraged me more than, I mean, it was very, very I won't say tastefully done, but it was like, the way they shot it was very, very powerful.
Yeah, they invoked an emotion of their audience during that point, and it was very powerful, and it worked, and it made you see what they did, and it was skillfully done. They would humanize Eichmann, but then they would bring back how evil he was and what he was responsible for, along with a lot of others. So you're like, yeah, you might like him, but don't forget, this is what he was responsible for.
Right.
And then they give you this big emotional, scene to bring you back in, and then they go back to a scene where he's just worried about his kids, and they're showing the human side of him again. I thought that was skillfully done in the movie.
And I like that part where he's trying to convince Oscar Isaac that he actually wasn't bad, and he's speaking in Yiddish. And I looked that up too. That was he actually did that. He actually learned Hebrew and Yiddish and stuff. And he tells Oscar Isaac that he actually didn't want the Jews killed. He actually wanted to transport them to Madagascar, and that's true. He did at one point. He had convinced Hitler and some of the other people in the party to immigrate the Jews. They were trying to immigrate them to the east and to Madagascar, but they shelved that plan because they lost the air war with Britain.
Right.
So, and that whole plan would have required them to have
Air superiority.
Air superiority. So they had to abandon it. So some of the stuff he was saying was true.
Right.
But at the same time,
well, but when that didn't work, his next one was,
yeah,
well, let's just kill them all then.
Right. So
it may not have been the words that came out of his mouth, but he was like, okay, I'll get him to. He
used the whole argument that they used in Nuremberg. A lot of Nazis used in Nuremberg was that they were just following orders, and he was just following orders. But at the same time, he didn't. He admitted
he was giving orders.
Yeah, he admitted that he did not feel. He did not feel bad. He did not feel remorseful
when he realized that the lying about it wasn't going to work. Then he just became a stone cold killer at that point, where he's just like, oh, yeah, I killed him, and I'd do it again.
Right.
But
and there was also that line in the movie where they said the other Nazis had and I haven't been able to confirm this from any other source, but he said their nickname for him was the Little Jew. Because if you look at pictures of Eichmann, he looks like he could have been Jewish.
I think there was a lot more Jewish blood going on in the Third Reich than they.
Well, there's a lot of people say that Hitler was part Jewish.
Well, yeah, he had dark hair and the little stature. One of his parents was part Jewish, I know.
I mean, very few of those top Nazi guys were blonde hair, blue eyed.
But see, because it was Hitler's idea, then he was exempt from the Jewish law.
Right.
What was it called? The Law of the Fifths or something? Where if you can trace, I can't remember what it was called. I think it was something like Law of the Thirds or Fifths or something. That if you can trace your Jewish roots back to one of your grandparents, then you're considered a Jew. If it goes beyond that generation, then you're safe. At least that's how it started, and probably at the end is if you walk by a Jewish person, they're probably killing you too.
Yeah. It was crazy times, man.
But you got you young people, if you're watching, if you want to learn about the history, you need to remember history. History is intended for us to remember so we don't repeat bad mistakes. But what did you think of this? I give
it a thumbs up.
On our 5 scale, what are you giving it?
I give it for a dramatic movie, I give it a 5. I think it's a necessary thing to see. I mean, as an action movie thriller, there was a very low body count. I mean, I think I only saw one person get
actually murdered.
Yeah, that guy that killed at the beginning. But because it was based on a true story, maybe they had to do it that way. It's not like they could. I mean, they could have added. It's not completely, because I've read that they moved. They changed some things to make it more dramatic, like the thing with the ladder.
Right.
But they could have added some action. But I think they were going. They felt it was too important.
This was more dramatic than it was
to kind of embellish it with theatrics and gunfights and whatnot.
It was kind of like James Bondish, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Had that whole double agent intrigue, and
they had a few gadgets that I think were probably real. They had a little camera in the bag and stuff like that.
Man, could you imagine? I was thinking about that during the movie. Could you imagine being the person that have to stand out there and spin the wheel on the camera and click, and you're holding your briefcase all funny, spinning it and clicking? And then,
well, you notice that Eichmann,
yeah, he noticed him.
He knows that guy and deduced that he was probably a Mossad agent.
I just knew that guy was going to get killed, didn't you? I mean, as far as the way they were telling the story, because they had his picture. But he got away. Everybody got away in the end.
Spoilers.
Spoilers, yeah. Oh, we didn't put a spoiler thing.
It's pretty kind of late to put the spoilers, but yeah.
As far as, there's really no spoilers to this movie because it happened the way it happened.
Right.
The only spoilers, I guess, would be the way that they portrayed that it happened. And they did a good job. I would also agree that it's a 5. I would recommend this to...
As a thriller, maybe about...
I don't think this is
3 or 4.
And I don't think this is a movie for young people. They're not going to appreciate it. I think this is for a little bit older audience. People who are familiar with the story and the history. But it's very well done. They did a good job. And I enjoyed it.
Yeah, go see it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to make a lot of money.
We had a
I
couple of...
think it had a $1 million opening.
I don't think they spent a crap ton of money.
Well, they spent $24 million on it.
$24 million on what? That house? the house that they shot 3/4 of the movie in? Probably salaries.
Salaries mostly.
Yeah, probably salaries.
I guarantee you they played Ben Kingsley something.
He probably got 20. How much did you say he was?
Huh?
How much did you say that they?
24.
He probably got 22.
Now I would say he probably got at least $5 million or something.
He made.
He's a big name.
Yeah, he made good money, and I guess they had a lot of location expenses because they were actually in Argentina.
They shot in Argentina. And all those period pieces.
Where are we with Argentina right now? I know that there was this whole crash of the oil and thing that happened over there, and they were having some
I don't know
government issues where the people were kind of like starting to riot and rebel.
No, that was Venezuela.
That's Venezuela. Okay.
I know Argentina had that war with Britain though for the Falkland Islands.
Yeah, that was
and
in the 80s.
They had that whole military regime. And I know our Mark Sanford had a woman down there.
Is that where his woman was?
Yeah.
That used to be our governor.
Yeah. He had his little.
We were paying for his affair.
Right.
That was awesome.
So it can't be too dangerous down there. He was going down there.
So
quite often.
after Britain invaded them, did their government change to a more?
I think the military government collapsed, but I don't know.
And it became more of a democratic government.
I don't know anything.
I have to look that
up.
up.
You know us Americans, we don't know anything about. We don't even know anything about Canada, for God's sake.
I know. Just keep the new iPhones rolling, and we're good.
I mean, I barely know who the Prime Minister of Canada is.
Yeah.
Justin Trudeau.
Trudeau,
He's probably the first prime minister. Who was the last one though? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Couldn't tell you my life depending on it. I couldn't tell you. Who's the president of Mexico? I don't know.
It just doesn't matter.
We don't. We
of
know
course it matters.
We know a lot. We know more about European nations though. You know.
Yeah, we know what Will and Kate's babies' names are.
Yeah.
Because that's important.
I know about Meghan Markle and Prince Harry and all that.
Yeah.
But man, we don't know anything about our neighbors. That's just how it's always been.
We probably need to change that. But we had a couple of big deaths this week. Big people die. We had Aretha Franklin die. And John McCain.
Right.
So those were some big things that happened this week. Did you watch either one of the funerals?
No.
I didn't either. There were some people watching Aretha Franklin's funeral at work. Mm-hmm. They had a computer open and they were watching it at work, but I didn't watch it. But anyway, well, we appreciate you guys coming by. We hope that you will like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and keep your eyes open for our next video. And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.